Today I'm chatting with Jenna Carlton, the millennial veteran. She started a really cool Facebook group to address the different concerns that millennial veterans like myself and her have when transitioning out of the forces. You're going to hear some cool stuff about being on an aircraft carrier and what it's like for somebody in their early 30s to start getting back after it once they're out of the forces from an American perspective. It's going to be a great episode, so stay tuned. Welcome, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Hard to Kill podcast. I'm sitting down with Jenna Carlton, part of the podcast coalition. If you're not tracking what that is a coalition that was created, I think, 3 weeks ago of American and now the token Canadian podcaster right here. And I'm really happy to have her on because it's a really cool group of really high energy, cool people that are just doing their best to get into the podcast game and share their knowledge in their respective fields. And Jenna has a really cool Facebook group and a really cool podcast that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. So Jenna, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be on the show.
Absolutely. So I guess, Jenna, we got to start with, where are you coming from? Like, what's the deal with Jenna Carlton and what got you to sit down here with this like lonely Canadian sitting in a basement talking on a podcast?
Lonely Canadian. So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a little afraid to talk to you because I have been hiding my Yooper accent for years because I was born in Upper Michigan, which is way up north by Lake Superior, and I grew up in Wisconsin, which is right on the border. But everyone there has what we call a Yooper accent, and it's close to Canadian. You know, we really like to stretch out our O's and whatnot. And I was just talking in boot camp, and I always say bag instead of bag, and I was the laundry person, so I had to say like bag all the time, and they were like, where are you from? Who says that? They were just so confused by me, so I've been hiding this accent ever since.
All right. Well, this is a Yooper friendly podcast then. I want to compare accents as much as possible. So if it pops up, okay, we'll definitely point it out. So that's interesting. So Upper Michigan has its own. It's not dialect. It's definitely the accent. Like, I'm not picking up anything right now.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you're probably going to pick up a few things that I have. But then again, like I mentioned when we were chatting, I'm from Montreal, and our Anglophone community, which basically means like we were born speaking English in our family, which is like, I don't think that's a term used out. Like, if I say Anglophone, does that make sense to you? Like, are you like, what does that mean?
I'm not too familiar with it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. Nobody knows what it means. Even in Canada, like, it doesn't really mean anything. I think it's a term that was made up here. It just means that you speak English at home, and somebody who speaks French at home is a francophone. Because I recognize that when I say, hey, I'm English, people will assume, and the Europeans will be like, oh, you're from England. No, no. I identify with like the language that I speak. I think it's the only place in the world that does this. So my family, like, we all grew up here and we consider ourselves English, but we're not. We're actually primarily Irish, which is really weird. And yeah, because it would be like, it's kind of weird, like if you speak a certain language, you say you're English, that doesn't make any sense to the rest of the planet. And my friend, my wife, I say, oh, she's French, and people go, oh, where from France is she from? I'm like, no. She was born here in Canada, in Quebec, but because I was born here too, I call her French, she calls me English, and then we have this weird like dynamic. So anyways, folks, if you're not from Quebec or Canada, I just gave you a lesson on a little bit of the politics.
Yeah.
And Jenna, thanks for listening to that little rant of mine. So back to you, back to growing up in Upper Michigan, and being a Yooper. What was that upbringing like in Upper Michigan for you?
So I was right on the border of Michigan in Wisconsin. So technically, I'm from Wisconsin. I mean, I was born in Michigan. I spent so much time there. It's 5 minutes away. But just to be clear, some people get mad when I claim I'm a Yooper because that's just like a title of its own.
Or
But both my parents are.
okay, gotcha, gotcha.
It was a lot of fun. I was from a small town, not too many people. I graduated with 36 kids and spent a lot of times outdoors. And even in the winter, we have only a couple months of summer, as you can relate to.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's still like 47 degrees today, 48 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm translating for you. I think it's like 5 degrees Celsius here. Yeah, it's freaking cold. Like it's like April. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes. Yeah, I'm used to that weather. Sports being canceled because of snow and all that. And taking snow off my car before I went to school.
That's the
Yeah.
Canadian.
And then,
That's a Canadian experience. So basically, we're the same
yes.
people. Okay, gotcha. I know where
Yeah.
you're starting
Yeah.
from. Okay.
Yes, I could relate to you a lot on that. But then I decided to join the Navy and get out of there because it's kind of depressing. So, Canada, weather wise, you guys have a Canadian high over you. So, you have a lot of high pressure. And that kind of pushes all these clouds over Wisconsin, Michigan. So, it's always cloudy there. Most of the time, it's overcast. There's always going to be clouds. So, you don't see the sun a lot. And
My
it gets depressing.
my inner Canadian feels like I have to apologize for that. Like, oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry you have that we're pushing down. We did. I don't mean to. Sorry.
it's all right. We got a lot of other stuff going for us, so we'll let it slide.
Check.
But yeah, and from being from a smaller community, I just wanted to get out and see more of the world. And I thought joining the military would be a great way to do that. And why not join the Navy? Hop on a boat and see the world. I literally probably thought I was going on a cruise ship. I didn't even double think about or research what it was like. I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna be on a cruise, they call it, across the world.
Mm.
um, so yeah, I went in with high hopes, and it was really cool. I did get to see a lot of stuff.
Whereabouts? Were you on the East Coast Navy or the West Coast Navy?
Yeah, so I was East Coast. I was on a carrier. I did weather, so that was a lot of fun. I was on an aircraft carrier, so we would go up on the tower part of the aircraft, and that's where our office was. So we always had a window, and I would go outside every hour, check the weather, document it, let the pilots know what was going on. And it was nice because I got to be outside, or if I was on night watch, I would go out and see the stars. And there's
Wow,
nothing like that, being on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean and seeing the stars. It's just surreal. It really is.
that's crazy. I mean, like I've never been on an aircraft carrier. Those things are just like marvels of human engineering, and you're literally on it like all day. That's your home for what? How many months are you out at sea for?
I think we were out for 9 months.
Oh my
And
god! Wow,
before
nine
that,
months.
you're doing, yeah, you're doing workup. So you're always out to sea. You're just off the coast of Virginia doing workups and doing drills and all of that. So it was huge. And there's like about 5,000 people on there.
Wow, that's insane. Because I have no frame of reference for that. So does it feel like you're on a ship though? Because it's so big. Like, does it just feel like you're in a building? What does that feel? Because
Hmm.
I've been on a few like I haven't been on any. I've been on our warships, but they've been docked. My only experience of being on like a floating ship has been fishing. And like after like I've been on a ship for like an entire day, and I got off, and I was like, okay, that's enough for me. I don't think I'm a sailor. Like I feel like shit. What is it like being on sea for that long? Does it like affect you in any way? Like when you come back to land, or is it just like it's so big you're just like, man, it just feels like I was at work?
Like you said, it's that big. You feel like you're in a building. You don't even, unless there's really crazy seas or they're doing high speed turns, you're not going to feel the ship move at all.
Hmm.
It's pretty level. And it's huge. There's different communities. I think we had like 4 different gyms. We had a Starbucks on board. We had 2 different mess decks where we eat, so you could choose where you wanted to eat at. Not that either was a great option, But yeah, and then you could go way down deep. I think there's like 10 levels up and then ten levels down, so like 20 levels
Mm. And you must
in the
have like
whole, like
you
20 floors.
you must have like all kinds of different like subcultures, right? Because like what you're I guess what we call like a met tech here in Canada, so like meteor I can't pronounce it meteorological technician. Did I say that right?
Yeah,
Having a hard time today.
yeah.
So I mean I'm assuming that was an enlisted position. Was that
Yes.
okay?
Yeah, I was enlisted.
Okay. So like you get your training, you do like you're doing like wet bulb stuff. Did I get that right? Is that was that part of what you were doing? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
see, I remember stuff. So that's cool. And then like when you're done, like you work for the day, like you can't go anywhere. You're on a freaking massive ship. So what do you do in your downtime? Like you just hang out with your friends and like go to the like mess hall or go to the like for us it's a mess, right? We call the mess like where we eat and where we go hang out the same thing.
Yeah.
But is that kind of the same deal or like the DFAC or the MW oh was it MWR for you guys? They can just hang out and like watch TV and like play video
Oh,
games. Like,
so I worked 12-hour shifts. When I was off, I would either hit the gym and then go straight to bed. I didn't hang out a lot just because we were so tired.
mm,
But I know a lot of people, we had a library. I would go to church a lot too. We had a chapel on the ship. And um, yeah, that's about it for entertainment, working out or
that's wild.
finding some room to hang out with or somebody's office that doesn't mind or they're off shift.
That's wild. And were you part of like a major, like one of the major operations, like Operation Enduring Freedom or any of those like that, where was going to the Persian Gulf and stuff like that, or were you just part of like the just a massive American military machine that's always kind of deployed all over the planet?
We were on Operation Inherent Resolve, this was in 2015 to 2016. So we were doing a lot of mission strikes in Syria
Mm,
at the time against ISIS, and we were in the East Med, half the deployment, and we were in the Persian Gulf the other half.
very cool. Yeah, I had, as you know, like Ryan from Vet with a Mic, right? He was just off the coast of Somalia, like hunting down pirates in the Navy. Like that's so cool.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we don't we have a navy here, but like let's be honest, it's not when you say the navy in the states, it's the navy, like the largest navy the world has ever seen. So ours can't
Hmm.
even compare. So the experiences you guys get there it seems really, really, really cool. So that's why I'm like fascinated. Like you're hunting pirates, that's insane, and you're like on an aircraft carrier, that's insane. I don't
Yeah.
have a frame of reference for that. So that sounds like you had a pretty interesting career. Now, did you stay longer than expected, or did you do like your I don't know what you guys call it, but like your like here we have contracts that are 4 years, right? Did you do like
Hmm.
your one contract and then you say, okay, good, like I've had enough, and then move out? What was your progression on that?
Yes, I did 4 years and I got out. If I were to have reenlisted, I would have had to go to a C school, which was about 8 months of weather school, almost equivalent to a bachelor's degree in meteorology. And I was not interested in doing that. I wanted to get out and kind of choose what to do, but I really went back and forth for a while.
And so once you got out, um, what did you do? Like, what was the experience like? Because you're a millennial, and we'll get into that very shortly. But what do you do? Like, you're young, obviously. I'm presuming you're still in your 20s, and now you've got 4 years of really interesting experience in the Navy, being on an aircraft carrier, and now it's like, okay, now what do I do? So, what was the next step for you?
So my husband got stationed up here. We weren't married at the time, but I was in love, so I followed him where he went, and I found a school up there, and it was the only school around here, so I applied, and I started going to school. Wasn't sure what I wanted to go for, and I'm about an hour south of DC, so I kind of got really into that politic realm and wanted to go for that. So I got my degree in public policy and I did an internship in DC. I worked at the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, and that's kind of how I really got interested in veterans and how I started learning more about my own experience on why I felt so isolated when I got out. And I also found out that there's not much Congress really can do as far as help people. They don't really have, they can make laws, but they don't have the authority to like make it happen. There's no hammer of, getting people to actually do, carry out their laws. So that kind of made me want to reach out and, kind of help people myself and really be a resource for people. I started telling my friends, if you need any help, if you're getting out, I can direct you where you need to be, help you with benefits.
It's interesting. So there was a calling there. There's something drew you into that because is it because as you were getting out or during your process, you just kind of felt like, well, I don't really know how to access the resources. I know there are resources, but I'm not quite sure what I need to do in order to be successful. What was the kind of impetus for you to really feel like this is something that you want to do?
Yes, when I got out, I think about a week later, no, about like 4 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. So I needed to reach back out. I didn't have medical insurance. I needed to, get with the VA, find out how I can get insurance, health insurance through them. And it was a difficult process. And
Mm.
I knew other people were probably going through the same things. When you're applying for school with your GI Bill, it's kind of a hard process. So I started a veterans club at my college and I realized there was only four other veterans. And I was like, okay, where else can I go? So I went to the local Legion and I was like, okay, I am the youngest person here. Where are people my age who can relate to that recent transition? So I looked online and I just started a group and I just meant it to be like my friends and friends of friends who had gotten out and we can just all get together. And it really turned into more and more people getting added and sharing resources, sharing stories, and sharing funny memes.
So is that where the Facebook group started? It was literally just you, a few friends sharing information, and now Millennial Veterans is turning into an actual thing where you've got almost it's 800 plus people now, which is getting you no longer know everybody in that group. It's impossible. So
Yeah.
is that literally the origin story of the Facebook group?
Yes. Yeah. I was in my garage having a couple beers and I said to my friend, I said, let's start a Facebook group just with everyone we know. And then we're like, add as many people as you can. We want the more resources, the more people. And it kind of just snowballed. It's been over a year now and it keeps growing.
Yeah, it's amazing when you touch on something, the like internet just brings people into it because if they're you're hitting a nerve because just the title itself, the millennial veteran, and you talked about going to the Legion. It's a very similar experience for a lot of us and for myself. I remember coming back from Afghanistan being like, well, I guess I need to go to the Legion now because that's what my grandfather did a long time ago. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll become a member. And I remember it was the first time I ever walked into a Legion and they're like, "Hi, how can we help you?" I'm like, "Can I sign up?" They're like, well, and it was just so indifferent. They're like, "Well, why?" I'm like, "Because I'm a veteran." They're like, "Oh, okay," but nobody there is a veteran. Nobody in our legions have any like. There's very few that have any experience because it's still an
Really?
organization. It's still an organization that was founded for the First and Second World War vets. So their corporate knowledge
Hmm.
is that of an old man, and that doesn't jive with us. We're all in our 30s.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm 40 now because it's been a while since we've been out of Afghanistan, but I feel you on that. It was just so weird being this new generation of veterans that you're dealing with a structure or like bureaucracies that have been geared to now old men like and obviously you had Vietnam, you have a lot of veterans from Vietnam, but they're all in their 60s and 70s now, even 80s.
Yeah.
World War
Hmm.
II vets. I met. We had a dinner last weekend. I met one of the last remaining World War II vets. He's 96 years old. He's
Wow.
he's sharp. Like, but that's what I mean. Like we don't. we haven't really caught up with the concept that veterans are young and they're kicking ass and taking names, and like we play video games and
Yeah.
we we have young kids, we want to start businesses, we want to get after it still. We're still like we're not done. So
Hmm.
I'm curious to know what have you noticed since you started this group? Like, what has been one of the biggest kind of eye openers that you've come across now that you have this like critical mass of young veterans, and like what's the insights that you're able to pull out of it?
The biggest thing is just how helpful people are and how much people want to give back and help and talk about their experiences. And like you said, so many people are ambitious. They want to start a business, they want to start a nonprofit, and it just totally contradicts that stigma that's out there that millennials are lazy. Um, I quoted Dave a few weeks ago. He said, he was talking about how people think that millennials are lazy, they don't work hard. And then he was like, wait a second, who's fought your wars for the past 10 plus years? And it's millennials. We have that work ethic and that concept, and we know what sacrifice is, exactly like you said. So I've just been determined to prove everyone wrong. Not that there's so many people out there, but I mean, even my husband at his job, they're always blaming the millennials on everything. And just, I feel like they even look at him like he has to kind of walk eggshells around them to prove that he's a hard worker, even though he's never even taken a sick day,
Hmm.
just because they have that in their minds that millennials are a certain way. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's been the biggest shock to me. Not really a shock, but just, it's just cool to see.
Yeah, that you can pool people together that have been branded lazy. But this is nothing new. Since the days of ancient Greece, every successive generation has blamed the younger generation for being lazy because they're doing things differently. That is part of
Hmm.
the human condition. And it's funny to hear the baby boomers say, "Oh, you guys are lazy," when I I they're the ones that have all the pension funds. They're the ones that have like cheap houses. They're the ones that, yeah, sure they had to work. Like I'm not saying they didn't have to work, but ultimately like
Yeah.
just to say like, "Oh, we're lazy." It's like, "Whoa, hold on a sec. Like pump the brakes, man. Like let's look at this rationally." And my comment there was based on, yeah, the fact that, the last 20 years has been just an era of warfare, and who was fighting all the wars. Like it's so
Hmm.
apparent, like it's not 40 and 50-year-old men and women that are going to fight. Overwhelmingly it's, teenagers and 20-year-olds. Well, I
Yeah.
granted, full disclosure, I don't know if I am actually a millennial. I think I'm a bit of a fraud. I'm on the cusp. I was born in 81. So
Yeah.
I don't think Gen X accepts me, and I don't think millennials accept me. So I think I'm I think I'm an outcast in both. But I listen to
There you go.
grunge music, but I grew up in the '80s, and I like having a work life balance. So I think that makes me like quasi millennial, quasi Gen X. But
Hmm.
needless to say, the I don't believe in the whole, blaming any particular generation for all the ills of society that are happening right now. That's just lazy, intellectual laziness. Because what are we gonna
Hmm.
do, right? If we're millennials and like the next generation, I think they're wise. I don't know what they're called. Whatever. Like, are we going to say like, well, the reason why things aren't going well is because you kids, because you don't want to work. It's like,
Yeah.
well, they just want to work differently. So that's interesting that you bring that up.
Hmm.
What are the plans then, with the millennial veteran community? What do you have up your sleeve, and what projects do you have on the go?
So we don't have anything really planned, just keeping things going, keeping camaraderie and that lightheartedness up in the group, and just continuing to interviewing people and lifting voices in the group on things that they're doing. And, so many people are writing books or starting businesses, and just supporting them and letting them know they have a community behind them.
Mm. So the goal is essentially to amplify the good work that's coming out of the current veteran community, like the younger veteran community. Like you said, they're starting
Hmm.
businesses, writing books, wanting to start nonprofits. I'm curious to know, like, in the States, what's it like in, I don't know, maybe you don't have any info on this, but what are your impressions on individuals that are veterans that, want to get, a nonprofit started or want to get a business started? Are there programs in place to help those individuals out, either with financing or with actual training, that's coming from the VA, or even nonprofit organizations themselves? Like, what's the climate there that you've come across?
Yes, it's actually almost, it's pretty saturated how many nonprofits are out there and how many businesses are there to support veterans, which is a good thing. But a lot of them are they don't last it long. They're short lived because they're not finding the right resources, the right people. I don't know if it's the business mindset. There's probably so many things, but there are so many resources for veterans that want to, and a lot for minority veterans and female veterans. Whatever you're looking for, you're bound to find it.
Yeah, that's one thing that we're sorely lacking here in Canada, anyways. I've dubbed it the veteran renaissance, because we're seeing all this flood of
Mhm.
really keen individuals that have sacrificed for their country and they want to give back to their country. But for you've got a wealth of resources, and if anything, there might be a bit too much, and then it gets lost in the sauce, and you might not
Yeah.
get the actual, you might not get the tailored, or the precision guided strike of resources that you may need in order to get off the ground, but they're there. That's something that we're starting to catch up on here in Canada anyways. We've definitely been lagging. Namely, we don't have dedicated statistics for veterans that are out, that are in the workforce. We've had a major study that was done a few years ago, but it's hard to glean any data in the sense that, like, how many veterans are now entrepreneurs? How many veterans started a
Hmm.
business and are actually succeeding? What are the needs of that community? And I think it's just because we're so small. I mean, ultimately, we have about, I think, 600,000 veterans in Canada, period. So put that in
Wow.
context, right? That we have a country that is enormous, and we only have 30-ish million, and then subsection
Hmm.
that into 600,000. If you're looking at it from a market perspective, how many people are really going to get behind maybe 600,000 veterans, and then break that down even more to, like, well, how many are actually starting businesses? I can count on, like, my
Yeah.
hand, two hands, like, how many veteran run businesses, including my own, that I know personally. Do I know any
Hmm.
more? I'm sure there are, but a lot of us don't identify as, like, veteran run businesses. But it would be great if
Yeah.
we eventually got to the point where we would be able to get, preferable loans, or to have a
Hmm.
centralized service that can be like, okay, like, veteran run businesses, you can access this particular fund, for, like, micro loans and stuff like that. Because a lot of us, we all start the same businesses, right? Veterans, it's either coffee, t-shirts, and then in my case, like, fitness and, like, PT programs. Like, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Like, we know that, like,
Yes.
we're gonna run with it. Some start other stuff,
Yep.
but in your case, like, what are the main, I guess, what are the main, if you're seeing businesses come through the millennial veterans, and, like, I'm in the group too, what are some of the main themes that you see coming through the Facebook group?
So I think a lot of people in our group are in that aspirational phase of
Mm,
like, okay, we might do this. I'm thinking about doing this. I haven't seen too many like official that are really branching out, at least not posting. I'm not saying members aren't doing that, but they should post, they should share and keep us updated. Another thing you mentioned was you were mentioned that there's businesses that veterans owns, but they're not aligning with that. And that's another thing I'd like to talk about is just people not identifying as veterans, especially people like myself who have only done one or two um, enlistments, and that kind of takes away from all the resources and benefits that you do have access to just by not saying you're a veteran. A lot of people want to disassociate with that.
mm. Okay, so in your case, like, you've done more. So I'll put in context. You've done 8 months at sea on a deployment, or more. Like, you've done two. Like, how you've done ample time, right?
I did, yeah, I've been on five different ships total. Not,
Oh
I
my
didn't
god.
deploy on all of them,
Okay,
but
yeah.
I have a lot of sea time.
Okay, so, like, it's funny you mention it, because most Canadians, at least those that are serving, and the new veterans now that didn't get any experience in Afghanistan, we don't have missions like in our Navy. You know, they're not regularly deployed. Like we I think we have a destroyer in the Persian Gulf. You know, how many are on that ship? A few hundred, right? Not even. So
Hmm.
therefore, it's interesting to hear that coming from you, considering you've had ample amount of sea time deployed, and you're like, I don't really feel like a veteran, because that
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, I felt it too, but I spent 8 months in Afghanistan, and the reason why I feel that is because I was a reservist. And so we have these different layers of, like who's a real veteran. And it ultimately comes down to just like self doubt and imposter syndrome for a lot of us because we feel like, oh, I didn't do enough. I've always used the analogy that I
Yeah.
got from Jocko. Like I wasn't knee deep in grenade pins. So therefore, like, you don't get to call yourself a veteran because you didn't have like
Hmm.
rockets flying over your head and like bringing Buddy back like Iwo Jima style like on your shoulder. And it's unfortunate because you're right. A lot of veterans don't call themselves veterans because they don't feel that they had enough time in, or they didn't deploy long enough, or whatever. They go through the laundry list of things. But for you guys and for you specifically, like our definition of a veteran is literally anyone that's completed their basic training. After that, you're considered a
Hmm.
veteran because you decided to put your ass on the line for the country. You signed on the dotted
Yeah.
line and you gave your life essentially to your country. To us, it's the queen. So I think I think it's noble, right? Not many people make that sacrifice or want to make that sacrifice anymore. So in the case of like an American veteran, like for you guys, is it the same thing? Like, do you have to have a certain amount of time in to be considered a veteran, or is it as soon as you put your name on that dotted line and you complete your basic, are you considered a veteran? What is it for you guys?
I think there is kind of that gray area because some people would say, yes, if you've completed basic, you're considered a veteran. Others would say, oh, if you even just went to basic, you're considered a veteran. Um, I I don't know if there is a definition. I know you have to complete, I think, 90 days of service to have access to your benefits. I'm not sure on that. It's something around that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe then people would consider themselves a veteran. But yeah, it it kind of shocks me at how many people just really disassociate and don't get involved in this community that we're both a part of.
Yeah, I agree. That's part of the reason why I'm on the airwaves doing podcasts and getting all
Hmm.
kinds of different voices on, and talking to friends of mine too that they won't access services that they are entitled to. Like
Yes.
they literally they've been injured badly, and then they just leave. They don't say anything, and then they're suffering. And I'm like, but you got injured because you're putting your ass in the line for the country. They're like, yeah, but it was an exercise. I'm like, it doesn't matter, man. Like we're doing stuff that was training in the event that we
Hmm.
did have to go to war. And the country now has like a duty to make sure that you're okay so that you can be a productive member of society. It's reshaping your concept of like handouts and like being a team player, because most of us grow up
Yes.
with like this idea of like self-sacrifice and, well,
Hmm.
look, I want this to go to Buddy who's in a lot worse shape. It's like, okay, I understand that, but like, how are you doing? Because if you're not able to thrive and get better and actually be a productive member, then you're holding back maybe your family, you're holding back maybe like your friends, maybe you're holding back your team at work because you're not doing well. And that's in everybody's best interest to get you better. And ultimately the forces here in Canada, or veterans of the VA, that's their role. That's what they want. They want you to be better. They want you to be top shape. They have the people to do that for you. And it's convincing yourself
Hmm.
that, yeah, I do deserve this. And I think that's been a holdback. And can I safely assume that that's a holdback for a lot of veterans too, to like access services? They don't feel that they deserve it because they either didn't do enough time, or they want to save it for their friend that is probably a little bit more banged up.
Absolutely. I think that last part you said is they'll see someone else who's an amputee or really has PTSD or something like that, and they're like, well, I'm not even that bad off. I want to save that appointment for someone who needs it. And the truth of the matter is there's room for everyone, and there's
Mm-hmm.
allotted money from Congress in the budget for you. So
Yeah.
you're not taking money away from anyone.
Okay. Yeah. And that's a very important point. You're not just because you're used, not it's not a zero sum game. Just because you take doesn't
Hmm.
mean he gets nothing or she gets nothing. It means there's a big pot for everybody. And if there's a requirement for more, the government will say, okay, we need more. And they will put more into that pot because it's in their best
Yes.
interest to make sure that you're good. That's what you have to understand. Like, we're a much better society if all of our veterans are doing well and back in society.
Hmm.
Like, we're like the case in point, you said it, like starting businesses, nonprofits, like these are all potential massive organizations that could have a massive benefit on society and kind of create that new the first or second World War generation was the greatest generation. I think that's where we're heading. We have this, and I see it with especially in the States with veterans getting involved in politics. I think that's
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
I think that's crazy important because if there's ever going to be another large scale deployment, having those individuals that have seen war and been to war and fought will have that sober second thought, right? That's something that we're starting to see here in Canada as well, as veterans are starting to get into politics, which has never been the case because we only had World War II. After
Well.
that, we had no deployments, we had no large scale wars. So Afghanistan is the largest war we've ever fought, longest we've ever fought here in Canada. So now we're seeing veterans getting involved in politics, which is changing the dynamics that we have here because it's making people realize like, oh wait, yeah, that's true, we did fight for 10 years, yeah, we did lose troops, we did have to kill other people in a
Yeah.
actual hot war. That puts your mindset into a totally different framework when it comes to, hey, are we going to deploy again to another hot war and potentially have to kill
Hmm.
people and lose Canadians? Like that sober second thought is going to be really important, I think, moving forward. So Jenna, where's the best place that people can either like listen to you and get into your Facebook group moving forward?
So if you want to join the Facebook group, you can go to facebook.com and search the
Sorry, say that
Millennial
again.
Veterans.
What's that website? I just want to.
It's this kind of small website called
It's this
Facebook.
just it's this new app coming out. Who knows? Like if it's going to take off. Who knows? But
Yeah, yeah, fingers crossed that it becomes something. But yeah, join the Facebook group. Please tell your friends about it. That's really our goal. And another one of our goals I want to mention is to help normalize that transition period where you feel isolated, you feel alone, you feel kind of othered because you're not a part of that community anymore, that culture. So we just like to talk about that and remind people that that's normal. A lot of people in our group are also transitioning out of the military or even in the military, and they're thinking about one day I'll transition. So it's good to just be a part of it, no matter what your status is. And also, you can find me on Instagram at the Millennial Veteran, and I go live every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and we do veteran interviews and just help share those stories and keep positivity going throughout our veteran community. And I hope to have your host, Dave, on soon.
yeah, absolutely. So I'll be publishing this in about 2 weeks. And the cool thing is that I'm actually heading out to Europe tomorrow. I'm super excited. So
I'm so
I'm
jealous.
yeah.
Where?
So we're going to Portugal. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So
Ah,
you probably see my face. I'm
that's
like
so
I've
cool.
been dying to get out of this place for so long, like over 2 years, right? We haven't been able to travel, so it's gonna be
Yeah.
really nice. So definitely want to get back in June. That's going to be on the agenda for sure. I'll love to share some experiences and hear some experiences from your group. So
Yeah.
that'd be freaking sweet. So that's every Sunday live on Instagram. Is that it?
On Instagram.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Instagram live every Sunday, the Millennial Veteran. And then it's open to Americans and Canadians, this Facebook group of yours, you
Yeah, I've
mentioned?
actually, so I'm sorry,
Well,
but you won't be my
I'm
first
in.
Canadian.
Okay.
I did have this guy, maybe you heard of him. It's his name's Rob. He's from Team Hawk Canada.
Nope.
He
Nope.
did Spec Ops in Canada. Yeah, cool guy. We just kind of compared it all, but I'd love to have you on. Of course, you're going to be on, and I think June's perfect because I'm taking a little break. I'm getting kind of burnt out from the lives, and I also kind of want to transition into doing something else, kind of like you guys are all doing, with the podcast or maybe YouTube. I'm not sure yet. So I'm going to send a Calendly Calendly, what is that? So you can just sign up whenever it works for you.
Yeah, we're finding out all these new little tech tips, eh? Like it's cool being able to
Yeah.
share from, coast to coast, like Canada, United States, just little things that for me, I'm like, yeah, I've been using this for years. Oh, you guys aren't using it? Like, what's Calendly? It's like, oh, cool. Yeah, here, use
Yeah.
this. Is awesome. And
It's
that's
so
me
nice.
that's me paying it forward from 3 years ago. A coach of mine being like, oh, here, just use my Calendly link. I was like, what are you talking about, bro? He's like, oh, you don't have to like go back and forth. They just pick on your schedule. And I'm like, oh my God. Like it's just it opened up so much more space in my schedule.
Yes.
So it's cool that, and that's just a small example of collaborating and just sharing knowledge in an IG group chat, right? It just goes a long way
Yes.
to be able to reach out and find other like minds. So Jenna, really, like, thanks so much for hopping on a call and chatting with me today on the podcast. And I know you're a busy lady. You've got work and kids to take care of. So thanks again. And definitely, I'll be on in June at some point, and I'll discuss all my awesome little adventures in Portugal, but all the cool things that we're doing here in Canada, and maybe talk a little bit more about accents. Who knows? Who knows? So
Yeah. Who knows, really?
oh, there we go. Oh, yeah. That's the one I like. That's the one I was waiting for. Like I said earlier,
Yeah.
it's kind of like Fargo. So it sounds like you're from Manitoba here in Canada. So, Jenna,
It's a
thanks
little
again.
slower.
It's a little slower. I have to admit, like it throws me off a little bit when I hear it, but okay, maybe we can do a whole episode in our own respective accents from here, like in Montreal. Like I'm from Montreal, bro. We say a lot of bros, and like we say, hey, Jenna, thanks for coming on the show.
You say
Ciao.
bro.
Ciao. Ciao. we throw in the
Ciao.
Italian. We throw in the Italian there. Listen,
Yeah, that's kind of like a mix up. I wouldn't have guessed that.
yeah, we got. So my wife is actually half Italian. There's a lot of Italians here, and they're mostly all English. So we get this kind of guys. What are we gonna do? Kind of
Yeah.
weird English thing
Ah,
that's thrown in here. So if I start speaking with my English bros, and if they happen to be Italian, like it comes full on out. So
yeah.
we'll have to
That's
figure that
funny.
out sometime. But thanks again, and
Yeah.
folks, don't forget, train hard, fight easy. Go check out the Millennial Veteran. Peace.